Well, it's been a long time since I've said these words, but today it's time to take a look at the Creative Sound Blaster E5 DAC and Headphone Amp. Yes, Sound Blaster. Hello everybody and welcome to Tech Uploaded. I am Chris, as always, and today, like I said, it's kind of a throwback Sound Blaster. Haven't thought about the Creative Sound Blaster brand in a long time, and that's a shame because I used to be a huge fan of their products all the way back to the Sound Blaster AW64 way back in the day, the ISA version of that card, and then of course after that you had the Sound Blaster Live and the Sound Blaster Audigy. And then somewhere along the line, I moved on to cards like the Asus Zonar. And this, I think, was like the last internal sound card that I used before I switched over to using my Audio Engine D1 DAC. The reason I went with the Audio Engine is because I have Audio Engine A5 Plus speakers, and they just happen to work super well with the D1 DAC. So it was a nice pairing. So when Creative sent this for the purpose of this review, and you know how I am with reviews, just because something's sent to me for review doesn't mean I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be honest. So my opinion on this is my opinion with my experience. That disclaimer out of the way. When this was sent, I took a look at the box, which we'll do up close momentarily, and thought, man, there's a lot going on this thing. I mean, compared to the D1 DAC, this thing is loaded with features. I mean, it is a headphone amplifier on top of being a DAC, but wow, there's just a lot happening here on this particular device. This is going to take me a while to actually get through playing with this thing before I can actually give my opinion. And that's pretty much what I did. I threw it through its paces. I tried it on my PC. I used my Mac, and then I used my iPhone. Now, I should note, all of my testing was done using my Sennheiser HD 485 headphones. Now, these don't require a huge amount of power to actually push, but they do require more than my Bose noise-canceling in-ear headphones, and then, of course, the cheap, which are sitting over there, iPhone built-in, earbuds. So these are headphones I didn't usually use on my laptop or with my iPhone, but I did use them with the D1 DAC, fairly often. So it seemed like a nice baseline to use these. But that being said, because I used headphones and I was using non-royalty-free music for the audio testing, a lot of this is going to just be basically me telling you how my experience went. But first, let's take a look at the packaging. Okay, so here's a closer look at the packaging for the E5 high-resolution USB DAC and portable headphone amplifier. And then that repeated in every language known to man. It is 24-bit, 192 kilohertz, and it is a USB DAC. So that is, all pretty standard fare. And then if you look along the bottom, you start seeing, where the features start coming in. So going across from left to right, you've got Bluetooth, NFC, APT, low latency crystal CSR, SBX, which is their new kind of like enhancement feature software that they have, Crystal Voice. This does drive 600 ohm headphones, so that is actually a nice little feature to have there. Again, 24-bit, 192 kilohertz, pretty standard. 120 decibel DAC, ASIO, and works with PS4, works with Xbox 360 and Xbox One. So yeah. And then it does show that it does use the SBAXX1 audio processor, so that is built into this device. And then taking a look at the back, you can kind of see how everything works on here and all the different connections. So you do have two headphone jacks to be able to hook up multiple sets of headphones if you happen to be watching a cinema film or something like internet video entertainment on a flight or something like that with a friend or significant other. And then you have of course, USB DAC functionality, which you can see down here at the bottom. So that's where you would plug into your computer. And then you have the ability to use this to actually record audio. You can strap it to your smartphone with some rubber bandage that comes with it. You do have the Crystal Voice microphone which basically allows you to do a lot of really like crazy stuff with your voice. The audio recording quality is not great, but it's pretty impressive, the effects that it can actually apply. And then basically you have a lot of input options on here. So when you look here, you have line and mic in, and that can also be optical in. You have line or optical out, USB host, which is what you'll use to hook up to your smartphone, which is important for later on when we go through the software. And again, then the USB port for actually hooking this up is a USB DAC, and for charging it, because it does have a built-in battery that lasts about 8 hours according to the box. I haven't tested that to the fullest of its extent, but seems to hold its own pretty well in the testing I did with it. Okay, so the next thing to do is go ahead and pop this bad boy open. And right away, you are greeted with the actual amp DAC itself on the top of the box. So you can pop that out and kind of see what's going on there. It's not too heavy, but it does have a nice rubberized feel on the bottom, so it's not going to slip around on your desk or anything like that. Crystal Voice branding on there, Sound Blaster branding, and then it does have the NFC chip in there as well. Then you can see on the back, you have your ports for the line in as well as optical in, the line optical out, USB host, and the USB. So yep, and then there are your dual headphone jacks as well as your volume control knob. So not a bad looking device, not nearly as sleek as the D1, but obviously has a lot more functionality. Then you do have the power Bluetooth on button, the SBX button, and then this gain switch is for going between low and high impedance headphones. And then these 3 dots show how much charge you have. All right, other items in the box are underneath of all of that and in a separate box themselves. So now we got to bust this guy open. And inside of here, you have the little stand that you can actually attach to this that has an area where you can even screw it into a tripod or something along those lines. And this is designed to actually snap onto the device itself. And the soft side is on the side with the little screw area, so clamp that on, and then you can set it down and do your recording or whatever. And then here are the bands actually for going on a smartphone if you wanted to like strap it to a smartphone or something like that, or you know, whatever you want to attach it to, really. I have found no reason to use this. The recording quality on this really isn't all that great. I have a portable audio recorder, a field recorder, so that works just fine for me. Other items in the box include an optical cable. So this has the standard optical on one side, and then the optical converted to the mini jack on the other for actually hooking this up to like a receiver or something along those lines. So that is nice that they included that, since that's kind of a interesting connection. And then a very red USB cable also comes with this as well for charging the micro USB and also hooking up to your computer for using this as a DAC. And then finally, some very non-English instructions. Worldwide warranty. And this is going to be one of those fold-out things that's never going to go back together, so I'm not even going to attempt it. And then the actual manual itself, which is one of those fold-out thingamajiggies, so I'm not going to do that because you can figure this all out on your own. It's not too complicated. All right, so the little E5 headphone amplifier and DAC. There's a lot going on that box. Half of what I read off on there, I don't even know what it was. I'm not going to lie. I can tell you that the SBX feature is basically the Creative's audio processing that they're going to apply to everything before it gets to your ears through the hardware chip that's built in the DAC itself. And you know, it's a nice feeling product. It's not the smallest thing in the world, but it wasn't a huge deal for me to kind of move around with it, as long as I wasn't, you know, trying to be super ultra mobile. But I think the first thing to do before I really get into my thoughts on this is we need to run through the software, because that's going to play into kind of my final thoughts on this and where I think this fits in as far as a use case scenario. So take a look at the PC software first, and the Mac software is very similar, so no need to go through both of those, and then go through the software as it is on iOS using my iPhone 6s. Okay, so once you get the Sound Blaster software installed, it's just a quick download from Creative's website, you will land at this screen. Now, one thing to note, when you do the installation for the software, you do have to have the DAC plugged in to a USB 3.0 port and powered on, or the software won't move forward. At least in my case, it had to be a USB 3.0 port. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Also, my D1 DAC was plugged in from Audio Engine. That threw things off a little bit during the installation, but after the install, I could actually have both of these plugged in together, and it would still work. So keep that in mind. So anywho, when you launch the software, you're going to be at the Xbx Studio Pro screen. Now, if this is the first time you're launching this, it's probably going to look like this. Xbx Pro Studio is probably not going to be turned on initially. So you have two ways of turning this on. You can turn it on via the software, and you'll see the light actually come on the device itself. And then you'll note if I turn off the button on the device, it turns it off in the software. So it goes both ways. Then you have your settings. So essentially, here's all of the little enhancements that are going to be applied across the board. So this is going to apply to every single thing being outputted by the DAC. So keep that in mind. Audio, games, everything. So you have your surround, which is exactly what it sounds like. It just kind of adjusts how much surround emulation you're going to get. And when I go into more detail on my thoughts on this device, I'll talk about this. But this is particularly, it's a nice enhancement when it comes to certain games, more than anything else. But if you do like that kind of echoey, kind of experience, this is where you would go to crank that up. Crystallizer, that just adds a little bit more of a sharpness to the sound, a little bit, kind of the opposite of the bass. These two kind of balance each other out. Bass boost is exactly what it sounds like. But what is interesting with the bass setting is you can set the crossover frequency. So if you're at all familiar with subwoofers and setting crossovers, then you know that, depending on where you set this, that's going to adjust, where the actual cutoff is going to be for when it applies bass. So the more bass you're going to get, the higher you pull this thing to the right, the less bass punch you're going to get, because it's going to be cutting it off at a higher frequency. So people familiar with subwoofers will appreciate this setting. Smart volume, I hate this setting in everything I've ever used it in. Software, different sound cards over the years, everything. I find that it just kind of, it just doesn't ever really get it quite right, so I just leave that off. And then Dialogue Plus, this is supposed to kind of make some adjustments to the EQ to make dialogue kind of punch a little bit more. It didn't really do much for me, so I kind of left that off as well. I would prefer to go into the Equalizer and play with things myself if I want to do that. So I don't really bother with that either. Now, while we're on the screen, one thing to keep in mind, when you change these settings, whether it be in here on the PC side or in the Mac software or on the mobile side, which we'll look at the iPhone 6s version of the software, whether you do it on that or a tablet or whatever, these settings save within the device. So if you're just plugged into, a smartphone or something via the line in jack, and you're not plugged in via the USB where you can go in and change the settings. If you turn Xbx Pro, it's kind of hard to say. If you turn that on, these will be the settings that it's going to use. It remembers these in the memory of the device. So the next thing, Crystal Voice. Now I'll go into this more when I actually have this hooked up to my iPhone, because it makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, this is where you can mess with the microphone for this device. Now, the internal mic is not fantastic on this. However, the little FX setting there is really fun to play with. So we'll get into that in a minute. But you do have the mic recording volume setting that you can set here. And then if you do want to monitor through the headphones, you can turn that on as well and adjust the volume. You do have the choice between the internal mic or using an external mic. Now, I did a weird setup. I turned monitoring on my H4n field recorder and then ran that into the E5 and kind of made that into a microphone just to test the internal mic to see, or the external mic settings to see if there was any like noise that was generated. And there wasn't. It was very clean. So the external mic setting, it does work, but like I said, keep in mind, the internal mic, it's kind of webcam-ish quality. It's not fantastic. As a matter of fact, the microphone built into my iPhone is a little bit better when it comes to recording. But what you can't do with that is these FX settings. So the effects are interesting. You have everything, from Alien and Deep Voice and Demon and, a lot of these Orc. They're very similar, but there's some interesting ones like, Scrappy Kid. Robot just kind of takes any inflection out of your voice. But the male to female one was really creepy in particular, the way that it got kind of close to what you would expect it to do. And then, of course, Munchkin's fun. But you can play with all of these, and they are interesting, and it does do a pretty darn good job. And again, it applies across the board to, whatever application you're recording into, whether it be Audition or you're recording into just your notes recorder on an iPhone, whatever. This, again, saves, and when you go to record, it's going to apply these settings. Smart volume I do actually utilize on the recording side because it helps kind of normalize the volume of the recording. So if you say something really loud and then you say something kind of soft, it's going to adjust accordingly for that, kind of like you would do in post and something like Audition. So it does help a little bit there. Noise reduction actually does work fairly well as well. It reduces just, the general background noise. Like I have an air conditioner running most of the time, and sometimes you can hear the vent noise, and it helps take care of that. Echo cancellation, I didn't really find it did a whole lot there. Focus is handy if you are trying to record a large group of people, maybe sitting at a table. It basically, like it says, it makes the recording angle either narrow or wide. So whether you're going to be speaking directly into the device or you want the device to pick up everything in the room, however, the wider you make that focus, the more noise you're going to pick up. And then you do have EQs that you can set, you can customize them. And, kind of go there. You can do a flat EQ and whatnot. I just leave that off. I find it's not necessary. If I want to apply any of those kind of settings the way I do audio, I will just do it in post. Now, scout mode. So this is supposed to basically be like an enhancement for games, like mostly first-person shooters. It's supposed to allow you to hear enemies from further away. One thing I've found is, like, even when I turn this on, when I go into do the hotkey configuration, even enabling all hotkeys, this has been really like kind of buggy for me. It doesn't like to save any of the hotkeys that I try to set. And I'll go in and try to set something and save it and go back in, and it's not there. And I tried it in the game and I was hitting the hotkeys that I thought that I'd set, and it didn't really seem to be doing anything. So I actually wasn't able to really test this. And if it was working, then it didn't really make a difference. So scout mode, didn't work for me. So that's a little bit buggy. Speakers and headphones. So here is basically where you can set whether you want your headphones to be just standard stereo, or your speakers to be standard stereo 2 or 2.1 if you have a subwoofer. So like with my D1 audio engine, it's just standard stereo, and it's direct mode. So this one allows you to kind of do that virtual surround, and I find that the virtual surround actually, with headphones, not so much with just stereo speakers, but with headphones, it does do a pretty convincing job of kind of making it sound like there really are, 7 speakers kind of set up around you with the subwoofer. Now, if you don't want any of the, processing from the chip to be applied to anything, direct mode is for you. And you can see when you actually click on the information, direct mode gives you audio in its purest form directly from the source. So again, comparing to the D1 DAC, that's pretty much what that DAC does. So if you don't want any of the fancy processing or anything like that to happen, then you would turn on direct mode, and it would basically bypass all of the SBX settings and the mixer settings and equalizer, all that stuff bypasses it. You can also turn on the SPDIF out direct, And again, it is what it sounds like. It allows bit-to-bit streaming up to 24-bit 96 kilohertz PCM data signals without any additional processing whatsoever. So these are kind of the settings to go into and set if you don't want the chip trying to do fancy things. And then you do have headphone surround for line optical out if you happen to have that plugged in, which I do not. The mixer has both playback settings, and then this I thought would drop down and go to, oh, here you go, recording. You have playback and recording, and this is pretty self-explanatory. How loud do you want things to be? What things do you want muted? What ports do you want working? What do you want disabled? That kind of thing, as well as your left and right balance. So if you need to tweak this, you can go in and adjust it. I have found no reason to mess with that. And finally, the equalizer. So this is something that I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy because you have a lot of different presets in here, but you can go through and you can kind of adjust this, how you like it. So if you're one of those people that's not an audio purist and you do like to tweak your audio a little bit depending on each genre of music that you listen to, you can actually do custom EQs for each thing. So maybe you have one that's more for pop music, but then you want one that's more for acoustical music. You can go in and you can set those in here. And again, they do carry forward on the device after you leave the software, as long as you turn on the SBX settings. So there you go. There's pretty much everything. You can do custom profiles as well. So they have the action adventure, default, driving simulation, first-person shooter, movie, music, real-time strategy. You can click on all these different, presets if you want to have one that you make yourself. Then you can change and tweak all of your settings and then save a custom profile. You can give it an icon. You can, give it a name, all that good stuff. I didn't mess with that either. So the software is pretty, it's pretty extensive. I mean, and then of course you've got the volume down here, and the volume does adjust. I'm moving the knob right now. It adjusts according to the volume knob. You'll notice that up goes much slower than down as far as that goes. So it favors making things quieter in case you overshoot. But that is the software. Super exciting. Now let's take a look at the mobile side of the software. Okay, so for the iPhone features, the first thing you want to do is have your iPhone ready. And then you are actually going to want to make sure that you power on the device, and it will go into SBX mode automatically when you turn it on. Then you will need to hook up using the USB cable for the phone. While you can use this with Bluetooth, you won't get the features that you actually get hooking it up through the USB port. So get that USB port hooked up, and then run your nice proprietary Apple cable. Boy, this thing's really kind of in the way too. And go ahead and get that plugged in. And once that is done, then we'll get that out of the way. Then you can actually go ahead and launch the Creative application. They call it Sound Blaster Central. So once it's open, you'll see that it detects that indeed the Sound Blaster E5 is what's plugged in, and you have your main landing screen here. So the first thing we'll take a look at is the Xbx Pro Studio. And as you can see, a lot of the same features are on here that were on the PC version. As a matter of fact, pretty much all of them are on here that were on the PC version, including being able to adjust the equalizer. You can also adjust the gain. So not only can you flip the gain switch on the actual device itself if your headphones aren't quite loud enough, you can also adjust it on here as well. So when you go back, then we'll get to Crystal Voice in a minute. You have the battery, so it shows your battery life on there. You also have the mixer, just like you did on the PC side, for adjusting your volume levels and muting anything that you're not going to use. Scout mode, not really sure what you would be using this for on a phone, but hey, it's there. Then you have the settings. So Bluetooth auto connection, I have that off because when I actually had it set up with Bluetooth, it was a little aggressive about as soon as I would turn this thing on, it would immediately connect to the phone. And then when I'd plug it in, it was having some issues understanding what was going on, that kind of thing. You can configure what the line mic optical in jack defaults to, whether it's line in or microphone. And if you do select microphone, then you can adjust your microphone boost on that screen. So, Crystal Voice, this is where things get interesting. So here is where you can kind of set all of your settings for the recorder on the device itself. Now I'm going to move it pretty close to the microphone that I'm actually using to record this. And what I'm going to do is start a recording, basically just, we will do Alien Brute, but I'm going to turn it off for the moment, and I'm going to go into my recorder. And now I've got voice memos open. So you need to make sure that this is not blue. You want to make sure that this is unselected, because if it is not, then it's going to record from the internal speaker on the phone and not from the one on the creative device. So once you have done that, then you can hit record and it will start recording, and you can kind of get an idea for how this is going to sound as far as working as a standard microphone. Now, this is with me going in an audition and kind of leveling everything out for the purposes of this video. But you can see that it's not fantastic just as a standard recorder. But now we can stop it and start having some fun. So now we'll jump back in here to the application for the actual device itself, and we'll go ahead and turn on voice effects, and we'll start with the Alien Brute. So let's do that, and then go back in here, and then we can continue recording.
And now you will see that it's applying the effect of me being like a brute alien, talking nasty that I'm going to take over the planet and you better surrender everything. I don't know what a mean alien would say, but it should sound pretty mean at least. So we'll stop it again.
Jump back into Crystal Voice, and then we will do another one that was pretty fun. Was actually, Munchkin is Munchkin's always fun, but you kind of have an idea what that's going to be. But Scrappy Kid was weird, so we'll do Scrappy Kid, and now we've got that one set.
So this is what Scrappy Kid sounds like, and you can imagine a small child explaining something to you with this. Please, sir, have you seen my dog? I've lost my puppy. I cannot find my puppy. I don't know why I'm having an accent with that, but anything I'm saying right now can't really be taken seriously because I should really sound like a small child. So this one is pretty close, I think, to getting pretty close to replicating that. So this one's interesting, but
I still don't find it quite as interesting as the male to female. This one is just freaky. So when you turn this one on and go back to the audio recorder, this is what I would sound like as a woman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tech Uploaded. I am Chris, as always, and today we're taking a look at a product from Creative, the Sound Blaster. Boy, I haven't said those words in a while. The E5 DAC and Headphone Amp. Yes, it is portable, and yes, I do sound like a female. You are not having issues with your hearing.
So yeah, as you can see, while the voice recording itself isn't fantastic in just standard mode, it is interesting to play around with the different Crystal Voice modes for sure. And this does do a pretty decent job if you are using an external mic that doesn't require phantom power. I just happen to use microphones that are XLR, and I run them into either the field recorder or my Behringer USB mixer that runs into the computer via USB. So really didn't have a whole lot that was great for testing this, other than kind of rigging the field recorder to do the audio monitoring while it was recording, and then running that into this and testing it that way just to see if there was any noise introduced, and there wasn't. But yeah, so there's the feature package that comes on the phone software itself. You also have the player that is available, so you can do that, but I'm not going to play anything because I'll get hit with copyright. And then you can also set an alarm. I have no idea what that does. I have not tried that, to be honest with you. And then they do have a resources tab for different places you can go if you have questions, or you want to look at different products, or you want to learn more about the audio processor itself. So a pretty full-featured package for a smartphone application. And again, if you make these changes on the phone, it will hold on to them going forward until you change them again on the phone or the computer app itself. And you can turn off the SBX processing with either the button on the device, or you can go in here and just click power there, and that will turn it off as well. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the actual software side of things and we know what the box says this should do, I'm basically going to go through first and kind of say how this thing falls as far as those features go, because a lot of this review is going to be very subjective. It's going to be a lot of my opinion because it's me listening. I'm not an audiophile. I have certain taste. Your taste may be different. You may not want any kind of processing on your audio. I kind of enjoy a little bit of it in certain cases and scenarios. So the first thing to look at is, does this live up to basically its advertised features? Yes. End of review. No, just kidding. This has a lot going on, obviously. The inputs are very broad. You have that USB host port, which is very interesting for being able to actually go in with your mobile devices and use the software on those, which I think is a nice touch. Obviously, the USB port for charging and actually using it with the PC works just fine. I did not test it with optical, but it did come with the optical cable, which is a nice plus. The line in for the microphone worked well. The line in actually using the iPhone into the line in worked fine as well. Going that direction, you don't get the features of the software when you do it that way. And then of course the headphone jacks, having two of these is also really nice. I did test both of them. They do both work. The volume knob, it feels okay. I feel like it could be a little bit more robust. I do like a nice, solid feeling, knob, and this is definitely plastic, or at least it seems like it. And it's, it could be a little sturdier feeling. The bottom feels great. But other than that, that's really nitpicking. This itself, recording with the built-in mic, like I said, expect webcam-ish, quality from that. But again, the software, and I think that's where this really shines. The software is very easy to use. It's intuitive. You can figure it out without having to crack open the manual at all. Everything's very responsive, so if you have headphones on and you're playing music or you're doing something and you're changing settings, you can hear it as you go, and that's really nice for being able to kind of tweak things and get them set how you like it. So the software works as advertised on both the mobile side and on the desktop. So, the audio quality itself, right up there with the D1, it's good. I tested it with very high quality audio that I got some things off of HD tracks, so, pretty much uncompressed as much as possible. Sounds great. Again, up there with the D1 DAC quality. It lives up to what it says it does. The battery life seems to be good. It lives up to its expectations. It lives up to the advertising, but just because it lives up to all of that doesn't mean that it's right for you. So who is this thing for? Okay, this is essentially one of Creative's newer sound cards that is in an external form. So first things first, if you're one of those people that doesn't like to have an internal audio solution because you're afraid of having some kind of, electronic interference bleed over into the card, you don't get that with an external DAC. I didn't have any noise coming through the headphones at all, even when I had nothing playing. Everything on the computer was silent, but I had the headphones turned up a decent amount, and everything was quiet. No hissing, nothing going on. Same with the recording side. So you do kind of have that separation from the computer to the actual device other than the USB connection. And a lot of people like that. So if that's what you're looking for and you really do want a DAC solution, but you want a little bit more flexibility than something like just like a D1, you definitely do get that with this. If you're one of those people that really likes to be able to go in and like tweak the EQ and have different settings, if you like the sound of, having some post-processing on your audio, of having, a little bit of a, I don't want to say synthesized, but not true to the artist's take on the music experience, which some people get very upset. Oh, it's not true to the art. But if you don't care about that, you just want to have a little extra bass punch, and you want to have a little bit more in the high end, and you want to have a little bit more of a surround kind of experience in your music, that's fine. That's you. You do you. You have your thing. So if you're one of those people, then this is great for you because there's so much flexibility there. I enjoy it in certain situations, but having used the D1 DAC for so long, I did notice the additional processing that was taking place. And if an audio track is like highly compressed or not the greatest recording, turning on the SBX features actually sometimes pulls out more of the errors in the actual audio compression than if you just left everything off. But that is an option. It's just you're paying a premium for having those SBX options on there. Now, where this thing really shined for me was in two places. Kind of three. Number one, gaming. I did find that turning on that surround experience and the bass boost, playing games like Doom and Borderlands and even Tomb Raider or Rise of the Tomb Raider, it did add a little bit more of an immersive experience to the game, from an audio perspective, using headphones, so that is the one thing to throw in there, using headphones. I don't think the experience would have been quite as noticeable using just a speaker setup. So there's gaming. I liked having the extra bass punch, especially, when I'm, using the shotgun or something in, Doom, or, when you use the function in Tomb Raider where you hit the key and it kind of lights up where things are, and it has that real deep bass track to it when you do that. It really made that punch. So that was enjoyable. I liked that from the gaming side of things. So if you're a big gamer, it is a nice addition to have those SBX settings. If you're somebody, especially that has headphones that are very high impedance, like, this goes up to 600 ohm amplification by flipping the switch over here from low gain to high gain. This is also going to be very nice. If you have very high-end headphones that require a lot of power to push them, then this is also nice because of the built-in headphone amp. Again, you can get just headphone amplifiers a lot cheaper if that's the only thing you're wanting to do. If you already have a good output source, then keep that in mind. But the fact that this builds that in is nice. So, if you're playing games and you got really high-end headphones, you can get up to this, the high impedance setting. You can enjoy all those different, features. That's kind of, I think, where this really shines the most. Now, I also use this in bed with my laptop a lot. I found that the audio experience I got out of this versus the built-in sound on my MacBook Air was noticeably better. Plus, I was able to get more volume out of my Sennheiser headphones using this. So I actually use this almost nightly with my MacBook Air, listening to music and stuff while I was, writing and, responding to emails and things like that. So I think if you work in an office environment where you have laptops, and believe me, I've had plenty of these because the business line of laptops usually don't put a whole lot of emphasis on audio because, they're business end laptops. And I've had ThinkPads and Latitudes both that when I had headphones plugged into them, you could hear hiss. When you weren't playing anything, you could hear hiss and almost like little beeps and like computer sounds happening in the headphones and that would drive you insane. So if you listen to a lot of music at work with headphones especially, then this would be really nice, just like I was using this with my MacBook Air in bed. So that's kind of, really where it shines as well. And then if you do have headphones, like I said, that need a little bit more power to drive, then plugging your iPhone into this or, whatever mobile device you have, iPod, Android device, whatever, that is nice that you can get that extra volume out of there as well. And the DAC is a little bit better quality on here than the iPhone. I had to nitpick to notice the difference, but there was a slight improvement using this, actually using the USB function, just going straight digitally into this. But that's really just subjective, and it could have been a placebo effect. So I don't want to say that it was really making a huge difference. The Bluetooth functionality works flawlessly. I didn't have any issues with that whatsoever. It was actually almost too aggressive. Every time I would turn this device on, it would try to connect to my iPhone no matter where it was in the house. So I had to actually go in and turn off that setting in the software so that it was a little bit less aggressive with the Bluetooth connectivity. But yeah, other than that, it does what it says it does. And I found that in a gaming scenario, if you're looking for an external sound card and you want to be able to add a little bit more of an experience to your games, especially if you're a headphone user, then I think this is not a bad option. Now, price, it's not the cheapest thing on earth. It is about $200. You can find a little bit less if you shop around, but I think the MSRP is right at like $199.99 US. So keep that in mind. That may seem high for a DAC amp, but again, you are getting, all of those features that are part of the AXX1 processor from, Sound Blaster. And like I said, from a gaming point of view, I think that's where you're really going to see the benefit of going with something like this over something more simplistic like the Audio Engine D1 that I have been using for so long. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please go ahead and click on that subscribe button. That would help me out. Thank you very much for that. And you can go ahead and also follow me on my social media accounts, such as Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, all as Tech Uploaded. And you can shoot me an email at techuploaded@gmail.com. And you know what? You know the drill. Don't be a stranger. Check back soon.